Hey guys! Okay, so I'm sitting here doing some of my critique partners edits on my middle grade book right now, and I was just having some thoughts, so I thought I would turn on the camera and kind of, I guess, I don't know what the term is, just talk, I guess, about the things I'm dealing with. So I feel like since my last video, which wasn't even that long ago, like my progress has just exploded and I didn't really expect it to, and it's kind of put me in this weird place where I don't know what to do with the rest of my year. As many of you know, I was thinking about doing Pitchwars. The deadline for that is like in 4 days or whatever. So what I did was I hurried up and I sent my second draft to my critique partner and I was like, hey, can you give me some feedback real quick just in case like this actually sucks a lot more than I thought it did. What actually ended up happening was that she finished the book and all of her feedback was really great, but most of it was either easy fixes to the plot or line edits. To me, that completely took me off guard because this was the first time that I have outlined and set up my novel in this new way. It's not completely different from the way I did my YA fantasy, but it was just a new outlining method I had never used. I have an entire video on that if you want to check it out. You know, plug. But I wasn't sure if it was just like a hot mess dumpster fire or not. So when I got her feedback back that there were just a few little plot tweaks that I needed to make, I needed to basically just enact to make sure that my character's motivations and reasons for doing things were like more cohesive. And going along with that, there were just a few little like ways of thinking that weren't really clear that my main character was having about issues or whatever, but those are relatively easy fixes. Like I was able to already get through some of that stuff in like just one sitting, and then other than that it was just like line edits where I just made terrible typos and she always catches those for me. But that just kind of showed me that this new outlining process really did seem to work for me because I didn't have any huge like massive plot or character issues that would take like big rewrites. And I think this is the first time I've ever written a book where I haven't had to do rewrites. And I mean I might still have to do rewrites, like I haven't had beta readers yet and all that stuff, but just the fact that that isn't the case with, you know, my one critique partner Jessica, who really gets my writing style and also gets like where my flaws are. The fact that she didn't think that there was any huge big rewrites for me to do at this stage in the game, it was like a huge deal for me. And then it sent me on an existential crisis because now I have a story that is gonna take a lot less time to finish. Like I've gotten 3 other readers at this point to kind of look it over. Some of them are middle grade readers, some of them are YA readers, but they're all gonna give me feedback. And then I just need to incorporate their feedback and then maybe do some line edits. And then like, am I ready to query? Like, what does this mean? Because when I was gonna do Pitchwars, it's like you submit and then there's like a 4-month waiting period. And then finally in February, you get to do the agent showcase and actually query. Well, since I've gotten this feedback, I kind of feel like I don't need to do Pitchwars. Like I'm farther along in this process than I thought I was. So I could be ready to query a lot sooner. Like what if I were to query in November instead of February? So now I am just a ball of stress because I didn't expect to have this book done this year, let alone be querying this year. And now that might be a possibility. Everything is a might. I just want to say that out in the open. Everything is a might because I still need more feedback before I make any definitive choices. But I might have a completed middle grade way sooner than I thought I would. That being said, in the way that only my brain can, I started having all of these thought spirals about publishing at the moment and everything going on, and it just really stressed me out. All of these stressful things I'm thinking are incredibly premature, and like that just shows you how thought spirals work, is you start stressing about things that don't even impact or apply to you at all. But what I was thinking about was the fact that if this middle grade does well, if I find an agent with this middle grade, if this is able to sell and it becomes my debut, what does that mean for my author brand? And by author brand, I mean like your persona as a writer. Like for example, Casey West is known as writing cutesy YA contemporaries, right? There's usually a little bit of like a family stressful underlining tones, and then all gets resolved in the end, and there's cutesy romance and everyone is happily ever after. If she wrote like a horror novel, people would be like, whoa, that's crazy, because that's against her brand. My stressful thinking process was, if this middle grade were to become my debut, and the vibe of this book is like cutesy middle grade story about family and whimsical and magic, then all of a sudden my author brand is gonna become cutesy, whimsical, magical middle grade writer. And as many of you know, this book was a palate cleanser for me. Like, what I mainly like to read and what I mainly like to write is very gritty, high fantasy that's dark and grungy. Like, those are my vibes, and this middle grade was a palate cleanser. So all of a sudden, I'm stressing because I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, my brand is going to be what my palate cleanser was. Like, it's not who I am, it's just what I was momentarily writing. That got me thinking, well, it might be very difficult for me to sell my next book if my brand is cutesy middle grade when I really want to write like a YA gothic horror next. It's just scary when I really want to write dark, gritty YA or adult fantasy like as the main part of my career. Like, when I think of my entire career as a whole as a writer, I think that like 75% of it would be YA or like adult crossover, whereas a very small majority would actually be this happy, light, fluffy fantasy that is my middle grade. And that's scary, because what if this is my debut and I'm never able to sell the type of stuff that I want? Or I get an agent who doesn't like the dark stuff and just wants me to continue to write the fun, light, fluffy fantasy. Then there's this whole discussion that I could so get into on the YA market right now and how terrible it is, and how like if I debut with a middle grade and then I'm like, hey agent, like I have this really cool YA gothic horror idea, would you want to take a look at it? And then they would be like, oh well, one strike against you is you're a middle grade writer, like that is who you are. So trying to get your foot in the door with something totally different like gothic horror, that's probably not gonna work. I don't know if I can sell that. And then number two, YA is just so unhealthy right now. Like, YA is changing so quickly, nobody knows where it's going. Like, the publishers don't know, the booksellers don't know, and us writers who are trying to write, not to the market, but at least write something that can sell, we're like, we don't know what's going on. From the people that I talk to that are in the industry, no one is barely getting agents in YA. No one is barely selling anything in YA. People that are debut authors trying to sell their second books, they're not selling because nobody knows what's going on. Nothing's selling. It's just like a dead zone right now in YA. So like, am I shooting myself in the foot by branding myself as a middle grade author when I really want to be a YA author? Like, I want to be both, but like mainly I'm going to be writing YA. I've heard it's harder if you debut in middle grade to sell a YA book than it is to debut as a YA and sell a middle grade book, because there's like this certain level of complexity in YA that isn't in middle grade sometimes, or at least there's like this heuristic that middle grade is simpler to write than YA, which isn't really true, but people have those ideas. So when you're a middle grade writer and you want to sell YA, they're kind of like, can you handle that? So these are just some of the things that I am stressing about unnecessarily because I'm not even agented, but here we are. This is what anxiety looks like. I don't even know what this video is. This is just me talking about an update on my book and my anxieties about traditional publishing and the market and writer brand and how important it is when it really shouldn't be that important, but it is. I would love to know some of your opinions on like author brand and what you think about it. For those of you that are self-publishing, I would love to hear your perspective too, because it is completely different in self-publishing, because you're kind of like setting your own path and nobody's telling you what you can and cannot publish. I don't even know if author brand is as big of a deal. Maybe it is. I'm completely ignorant to it. So like, let me know down in the comments if you're self-publishing, your ideas on author brand. And yeah, just I guess commiserate with me and the state of publishing at the moment. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching it to the end. If you did, you're awesome. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. I swear I'm not this negative all the time. Anyways, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.